Hello and welcome to another, in fact, possibly the last podcast episode of Youth Action. I'm Adam. I realised that on my other podcast I didn't even introduce myself, so now you know who I am. I'm here with Leoni. Say hi.
Hi.
She is one of a few different Youth Action volunteer support workers. I think I've been the sort of constant over the last 3 years of the project, and we've had two other staff members and then Leoni more recently. She came to us when?
August 2016.
August 2016. Okay, so you probably came at a point where we'd kind of hit our stride, I think. You know, we'd definitely got all the creases ironed out around the project and what we wanted it to manifest in. And I think particularly around that time was we were in full swing with social action projects and the one-to-one service that we had. And the main thing that I felt that, like with me kind of running the project, I wanted the staff to work more with social action projects and one-to-ones. And I know that's something that you've definitely got involved in and managed. And I mean, what sort of things, let's break it down now, what sort of projects have you done with the young people?
I have planned and organised a Christmas meal with a few young people from the Tactic Youth Club in Leighton Buzzard. So basically we prepared and hosted a Christmas meal for, I think it was 40 plus elderly people, and the young people who I was working with cooked a starters, mains and desserts from scratch, and obviously hosted a few games and decorated the seating area where they were going to be having their meal. I'm trying to think what else.
What was your first one?
I think that was the first one.
Was it? Was there a Christmas wrapping?
Yeah,
paper one?
I think that was in between that. And
Okay.
So that was like the Christmas wrapping one we did.
Okay, so if that was your first one, like, do you remember like what your thoughts were where you'd been like given this task?
I honestly thought that the young people weren't. I know it's bad as it sounds, but I honestly didn't think that it would have came out nowhere as near as good as what it actually did. To be honest, I'm actually amazed that we managed to all pull it together, and that was fabulous, really. And just seeing the young people just being overwhelmed with how it turned out was just such a great feeling in itself.
Such a success, it sounded like. You know, there didn't seem like anything went wrong, and I suppose with a young person, they might think, "Oh God, what if this what if that happens?"
Yeah, we didn't even burn the turkey. That was good.
If you haven't burnt your turkey, you've done all right, I think.
Yeah.
And I get, obviously the older people that you did the meal for, the feedback seemed pretty good as well, and kept them entertained and all that. And that project, I think, like when I think about when I first started this and when I knew I had to get a project done, say at a youth club or whatever, it was always difficult. It was always like a worry at the start of like, because you're kind of going in cold, and you're meeting up with a group of young people and you're essentially asking them, we've got an opportunity here to do some good. What do you want to do? And it could be anything. And and I think our job, I suppose, is to slightly corral the idea into something realistic, because there's nothing wrong
manageable.
With was that the first idea they came up with, or did you have like a bunch of wacky ones to start with? Because I've had a bunch of wacky ones.
I know that wasn't our original one. I think the girls initially wanted to go into like one of the residential homes and then cook. I think it was like for a few residential homes instead of just rallying up the elderly and hosting it in. Where did we host it again?
Wasn't it like not a tactic centre, was it? But they've got like a youth club type place with like good facilities.
Yeah, a hall,
isn't there?
basically. Yeah, so that was like a new refurbed hall, which was great. Really. So
a success. So your
It
first
was.
one was a success. That must have
It
given you
was.
more confidence for the next one as well.
Definitely.
I was thinking, like, one of the ones that I started out with was, it's funny, like, it's just some of the mad ideas that come about. I'm not saying that any of them are wrong, but, like, one of them wanted to do, like, a topless car wash.
Oh my.
Luckily, they were all boys, I suppose, but then still well inappropriate.
Yeah.
And they'd also noticed that there was, like, this homeless person, and they wanted to focus on them, and I wish I could say that it was very like a nice focus, but actually it sounded like they just wanted to mock him with something as well. But you know, these ideas kind of develop out of those conversations, and eventually you get to an idea. And I do like that process. It is a bit like concerning as a staff member, because I think my fear, what's my fear? My fear is that they'll come up with something that is possible to deliver, but would take like a lot of work and a lot of coordination.
It's never just simple.
No. Like, I had experience working with the NCS, and that quite often somebody would come up with the idea of doing like a music concert. You know, get the public in, get them to sort of pay, and then we'll give the money to charity. And then they realise the logistics of it are remarkable, like hiring a hall out, getting like sound equipment, sorting all the legal stuff around it, the advertise, you know, just and they don't have a budget on the NCS either, so
yeah,
you know, at least we've got a bit of that. But yeah, I think with the projects just to kind of bring it into what will be the end of Youth Action shortly, is those are the things that I'm very proud of. The idea that you sort of drop into an area and you work with young people about what good they want to do, and I get this sort of mental image of, in Bedfordshire, which is sort of roundish, there are little pockets of like good being done, and good in two ways. Good in terms of like supporting the community, but good in terms of the young people that devoted themselves to a project and got a lot out of it. You know, they learnt skills, they built their confidence, they got a little bit, I think, particularly going back to like the Sandy mental health project, the realisation of their capabilities, I thought was the most important thing. And maybe that goes for all the other projects. I just noticed it in particular with the mental health project, and they want to take that forward. So yeah, projects over Youth Action period, very proud of, very cool, done lots of good. So let's talk a bit about like the one-to-one side of things. So I consider that like the other strand of the support that we offered. How have they been for you with the one-to-one stuff?
I think when I first started, they were totally fine. Got like a couple of success stories, and then obviously returning back from maternity, I don't think I was able to put somebody into a voluntary organisation, but it's sort of kind of well, I'm quite a bit upset about it, but it's just mainly just, you know, perseverance and trying to push that young person into being able to find a suitable voluntary opportunity for themselves. And then obviously with the projects coming to a close, you know, I'm not going to be able to do that anymore.
I did wonder that, like, do you think if it would have been going another year that you would have been able to get her in somewhere? Like,
possibly, yeah.
So I think some of the work that you might have had to do in the background is like building her confidence a little bit and just spending maybe a bit more time with her, I guess.
Yeah.
We do all we can on our side, but there's a readiness, I think, that needs to be considered, and I personally have found that difficult, where there is striking the balance between suitably encouraging young people towards a certain direction, but also respecting that some of them are super nervous and super anxious, and you don't want to like overwhelm them or even put them off. I would say. Yeah. So that's definitely been something that I've had difficulty with. I mean, the success stories are definitely there. Like, I can think back to the one-to-ones that I've done, and the most enjoyable process for me was the initial meeting, finding out like what they want to do, finding out a little bit about their personal difficulties, talking them through a little bit as well. Like, I found a couple of people put little barriers in the way, like, oh, it's too far or it takes too long, and then you just do a little intervention and they go, yeah, that's fine, and then off they go. So sometimes you help them remove their own barriers as well too. I found that really cool. And then all the way to going with them to their first placement, in making the introductions, and then maybe going with them again when they start properly, and then that's it. You know, we kind of just let them go on with it at that point.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a good case for, like, we don't really need to be there that longer because we've done the initial support work. And I don't see much reason to sort of continue other than, like, checking in with them now and again as well. But that is a concern for me going forward with Youth Action finishing. Like, one of the things I've thought about is the young people that we've managed to get into placements and have been a success story. What would have happened if Youth Action didn't exist? Like, I wonder, like, whether they wouldn't have progressed or whether they might have found something else, or I don't know. I wouldn't be arrogant enough to think like Youth Action is the saviour of all things, you know, and without us all kids are going to really struggle.
But it's definitely made an impact with the young people who we've worked with, I believe. Yeah.
So taking those, like, assuming that there will continue to be young people with those difficulties, then how do you think in the future they might be supported? Or, I mean, that's you know, the look on your face is the same look that I've had as I've been thinking about it, where it's like there doesn't really seem to be much out there.
No.
We're all hearing about, like, the reduction in money, you know, from a council perspective. Their role is basically to provide services, and while their money is cut, they can't provide as many services. So I don't want to paint a bleak picture, but I just feel like there'll be less things like us, like other youth work organisations available.
Yeah.
I've got a meeting with the council next week, and I put a lot of value in being given the opportunity to raise these concerns with them. I think that's important, and I've put a lot of work into how I might word that to them as well, in the report that I did. And what I do is I turn up there and then I go through the report, because it feels like they don't usually read the report, if I'm honest. Maybe they had a scan through, but I think they don't have a lot of time on their hands, so they rely on me kind of walking them through it. So, you know, the things that I've come up with are about the young people that might have those difficulties. Communication. I think one of the things that this project has struggled with a little bit is just finding out how young people are getting on. And how we've done that is with the phone calls, which takes usually like a whole week, you know, of like constantly phoning up, how you getting on. Mostly just getting no answer or an answer phone. And I thought, like, well, what's the alternative to that, phoning them up? Texting them? Texts don't usually get answered. Okay, texts don't usually get answered. Let's try email. Young people don't really check their email. Social media, everyone seems to think that kids are on social media all the time. But then if you're putting something out, you take a chance on them noticing it. Because obviously you've got your stream, your feed and all that, and people dip into it and dip out of it. So I think going forward, it's going to be hard for organisations to, like, find out the information that they need from young people, I think. But that's, you know, something for the council to worry about, I'd say. So, I mean, other than obviously the social action projects and the one-to-one stuff, like, what have you enjoyed about the role, and what have you noticed about how we sort of deliver ourselves as a project in the time that you've been here?
I've definitely enjoyed working with a variety of young people, from people who are overly confident to kind of more timid and shy people. And it's kind of, I think, as we've worked, due to working with, like, both young people, you can kind of, how would I say it, like, take, you know, kind of, say for example somebody's really shy, and then try to boost that person's confidence by...
You're talking about shaping your approach a little bit, like,
definitely.
Like how you, what, like, tools that you pull out of your bag for different responses. was interested in that you saying like you've come across like confident kids,
Mm-hmm.
because I always assumed that the one-to-ones were always kids that would be struggling a bit. So have you had like ones that you've had one-to-ones with that have been really confident as well then?
No, mainly more with the like social action projects.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely the girls at tactic. I think there was probably like one or two that were kind of quite quiet and shy, where the rest were
Mm-hmm.
very vocal and, you know, taking control.
You need both.
Yeah.
I find you definitely need both. I had a couple of projects like, and I had the different scales. Like I had like one. I remember like the Flitwick group, and there was one young person that was proper lively, like proper like ADHD, bouncing off the walls and all that. And in that same group, I had like a fairly like calm, quite confident kid as well. So it's kind of nice having like the balance between the two, because like one is quite good at like focusing on certain things or noticing things that other kids haven't noticed.
Mm-hmm.
But then the one with all the energy is like getting amongst it and like making good progress as well. I think a lot of the projects did have a little bit of a sense of like a little microcosm of society, I found as well. All the different personalities. That's what I enjoy actually, is seeing all the different personalities come through.
Definitely.
But sometimes the struggles as well, like how's it been for you, say, working with some young people and you're aware of like some of their issues or some of their kind of family stuff in the background, because we are exposed to that information to help us work with them.
Mm-hmm.
What has that been like with you, one-on-ones and that?
I think it's been okay.
Yeah.
Really. I think the young people who I've worked with, like having one-to-ones with their parents, have been very supportive with their child. Doing youth action, being in contact with youth action.
Yeah. Have you always found that?
Mm.
Yeah, because I had a couple of young people, and like you met the parents and you're like, oh my god, I can totally see why you've got all these issues. Like there was one in particular that was, for want of a better word, toxic. She like, in a brief conversation, I watched her completely destabilise her self-esteem, like in just a comment or whatever it was. And my mum obviously had her own issues, and there were times where like I guess there was the opposite end of the scale, where like some parents were super supportive, like overly supportive, to the point where they took away like young people's sense of taking risks or like trying things. They were like, oh, I don't know if you want to do that, and I know some of that comes from being a parent of a child that's got maybe a certain amount of mental health issues, and you don't want to rock the boat, and you don't want to like take them to a place that you've seen that's very negative, and some of that can be risked by doing things outside your comfort zone. And I found that with some of the parents as well, and it was quite hard for me, like using the first example of not like there was a temptation in me to go, oh, don't listen to what she's saying, and I felt like trying to like undo it a bit, and I don't know, reassure them, but I think in my not really knowing what the answer to that was, I kind of just focused more on the job. Here we are, you're at your volunteering placement, and this is the task that's been set for you. Here's Nicola, one of our great allies in the project as well, Nicola King. I'm thinking of like one of the projects like Kids Run Free, where some young people would turn up and the parent would drop them off, and Nicola's great with them. She's really sort of helpful in finding out, and doesn't really focus on the issues, perhaps like I do. She just goes, right, you're here to do volunteering, let's get on with it, off we go. So we're in the process of winding the project up at the moment. The funding technically finished at the end of March, and what we've been doing what have we been doing to close down the project so far? What have we been up to?
We have been obviously managing our existing voluntary organisations. who we are in contact with, and being able to put them on a system so young people can still access them, and that the opportunities don't just vanish with the project. It essentially just so it's basically backed up onto a system, so like I said, young people can access it. Mainly closing our one-to-ones that we have, making sure that they're supported still.
Which doesn't that involve like referring them back to where you received the referral from?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've done the same, but some of that's been difficult as well because some of the young people that I've been working with just wouldn't get back to me. So when you try 3 or 4 times, then it's usually time to hand about. I mean, mostly 4YP really is who we end up referring back.
Coming to a close with our social action projects that we have going on.
Do you want to say a little bit about how that's been for you?
A nightmare. But we've finally got somewhere. So.
Yeah, we took on a project with a school, and that school went through a lot of, I'm being a bit vague intentionally here. Yeah, a lot of changes, staff wise, curriculum wise, and that's despite us and the staff's best intentions in some senses. It's been quite difficult to conclude that project as well. And I think this it's been going a while. One of their staff approached me over a year ago and said, can we do something? And I've always been interested in doing it, but we were kind of waiting for the right project really. And a kind of conservation idea came out, and a very practical one as well. So we could, I thought it'd be fairly easy, if I'm honest. Yeah. I thought it'd be like, right, okay, we'll be all done and dusted by maybe March.
Compared to what's happened, what we've planned before in the past, so
that's mostly how it works out, pretty easy like that. But yeah, what I've learned is that when you have a school that's going through a great deal of change, it makes it very hard to get things going. Suffice to say, like the majority of them have done a lot of work already on the project, and we have made it known to them what they need to do to sort of just to conclude it, I suppose. I think we've done all we can. We've made the contacts, we've introduced them to the idea, and they're for the most part, by the sound of it, delivering it. And our role will be, from our side to conclude, will be to give them their certificates essentially, because they've worked hard on their project, and that'll be a nice sort of bit of closure, I think, as well, because we're going to trust that the school are going to wrap up and then do their little school trip as well to the organisation that they're supporting. For the same, there was another project that we could have done. Like I was considering doing one with a Shefford youth club, and I'm glad. In retrospect, I'm really glad I didn't, because I think we would have still been trying to wrap it up by now, or even designing it by now. So yeah, it was a good move. I think just making that like the last one, and giving us time to wrap up things with one-to-ones. What else have I got to do? Even down to things like getting rid of stuff that we've accumulated as well. We've been donating that to local organisations as well. And things like our internet presence needs to be closed down as well. I feel like leaving that till like the last minute. I'll do that in the last week really.
That's a shame. Our Twitter followers are going up.
They were doing quite well. I don't know how many of them were actually young people though, I must admit. But yeah, a bit of Twitter, a bit of Facebook, MailChimp, YouTube will remain. I like the idea of the podcast being a bit of a legacy of what we've delivered. And just closing it safely really. I think, for me, it's been awesome. I think over the last 3 years, being essentially going into a job where they essentially said, here's a bit of a template, but you can kind of work it out how you want to. How many times do you really get an opportunity like that to run a project? I've enjoyed that. I've enjoyed how it was shaped. I enjoyed the relationship building with the organisations. Obviously, I enjoyed working with the young people, but I enjoyed being the go-between the organisations and the young people as well, being that kind of middleman where I can support young people on the one side and support the organisations on the other. I enjoyed that particularly. And I came out, my previous career was in like counselling and addiction, and it was a bit of a change. And I was looking for a change, I was looking for a new direction. And I'm now working in an environment which is commonly called the community and voluntary sector organisation, where I feel there's quite a lot of opportunities as well. I learned a lot from this job that I know that I can carry forward. And I say that because when I left my last career, I was sort of terrified, because I was like, I don't want to do that career anymore, but that's all I know how to do, that's all I'm trained for. So doing this job has now opened up a whole sort of spider web of different opportunities. I can go into like youth work, I can go into counselling side of things, I can go into event organisation, and I can go into management now because I've managed a project, you know. So there's things that have been opened up as a result of this job. I mean, how can you put your spin on that? You know, what you've kind of gained from this job that you think you're going to carry forward, or I mean, you can say a little bit about your new role if you'd like to.
Definitely the contact side of things, because I'm still working for Central Beds Council in effect. My new position is I am a specialist child sexual exploitation worker, so it's kind of similar to what I do now, so lots of outreach work, but basically specialise in working with young people who are obviously at risk of CSE. So kind of, you know, implementing, you know, a care plan for them, supporting them, you know, what things they can do in their community to kind of beat that abuse, basically. So yeah, definitely the contact side of things, because I'm still within the same area, so that'd be great taking that forward. If I'm working with a young person and they wanted to do voluntary work, or you know, I still have that knowledge, which is great, really. So
yeah, I found that as well. Like, my knowledge of Bedfordshire is like massive, and I feel like at some point a young person going to say, I want to do this, or I need to do that, and it's like, yeah, I know that organisation and know the contact details. So yeah, local knowledge, I think, has been the thing that I think other organisations have relied on us for. Like, if we get a referral from 4YP, they usually say something like, you know, have you got any of this, have you got any of that? And you know, I feel pretty good about carrying that forward into my next role, which will probably be it will be here to listen stuff. I've got a little company that I set up in 2012 that was initially started out like a counselling organisation, but at the moment we're delivering the NCS. So there'll be some NCS opportunities there. And for anyone that's considering setting up their own business, on the one side I'd say it's not that hard, in the sense of, when I was younger, I thought that people who set up their own businesses were like gods. You know, how on earth do you do that?
Agreed.
Yeah, that seems impossible. And what like luck have they had, and who did they have to screw over to get where they are, and all that. I had this like real like weird view of it. But having done it, it's nowhere near as hard as I thought. From a logistical point of view, like, you go on the website, you go on Companies House, you register this, you get, you know, there's a process that you follow, and you know, this organisation that we exist under was very supportive with that. It wasn't that hard to create a business. It was harder to develop a business, for sure. Definitely. I mean, that's where people will talk about the hard work. But again, we just follow the process. You know, meet as many people as you can. Form as many contacts as you can, take opportunities as they come, you know, and that's why we're running the NCS. It's all because we mostly said yes to things, really, and just like went along with things, despite like some risks as well. So I'm proud of like where we're at, and it's acted as a bit of a safety net for moments like this, where essentially the contract is running out. Me and Leoni are at the job, but we both managed to sort ourselves out.
Yeah. Panic's over.
Yeah. I mean, your previous. I talked about my previous work, and like I was trained in a thing that I didn't want to do anymore. I've heard you talk about as well, like the difficulties that you had, and you sounded like you were ready for a career change as well.
Yeah, because before everything, one of my first jobs was working in a holistic dentist practice, and I was on reception and was training to be a dental nurse, but I just knew it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So scrap that idea.
How did you know it wasn't for you?
It just, I don't know. I just didn't like how the dentist treated me, and obviously working alongside with that. So, for example, you know, if the dentist has had a bad day at home, like I will feel all front of that basically. So it just really wasn't for me. I like being able to work in a team with somebody, knowing, you know, they've kind of like got my back basically, and I didn't feel that. It was just out on your own basically.
I get the feeling that that's not terribly unusual either.
No.
You know, if you look at retail, or if you look at any business that's got like targets to meet, which is most of them, then I can't help feeling that it informs people's approach, a stressy sort of like
anxiety.
And
that's what it was. It was a stressy environment, you know. I just didn't like that under pressure of it. It's not good.
Which is worlds away from where we worked, really. Like we exist within CBS, and CBS have been, you know, can't fault them basically. You know, they've the sort of approach. I've got to name check Martin really. So Martin Trinder's the boss man, and he has got this sort of approach that is very informed, but he also understands like the bigger picture. So if we're struggling with something, he'll either have an idea or he'll be taking the approach of, well, you're kind of powerless over that. So most of his approaches essentially took a lot of pressure off of us and enabled us to kind of deliver the job really without having to worry about coming into work and having your boss shout at you sort of thing. There was never any of that.
Never that. Honestly, because like I've said to you before, Adam, in the past, that this is one of like the best places that I've worked for, because everybody's so supportive for one another, and that's great. And I think all workplaces should be like this.
The argument often is that this is the community and voluntary sector, and it's somewhat fluffy. That's, you know, rather than corporate. Yeah. Which has me like a little bit like wary of ever going into that kind of line of work again. I mean, you and I are technically still within this environment. So that's good. You'll probably have your targets and all that, and you know that's fine. We also would, from my side, have that as well. But we're still both working with young people. We're still both supporting them towards a better life, I think. And that's very rewarding, and that's a great way to make a living, in my opinion. You know, and I can't help feeling that I wouldn't want to do any retail-y type stuff, or somewhere where a manager's going to be shouting at me or whatever. You know, and I know we all have to do those jobs every now and again, and I've done those jobs, but I feel quite like almost like a security of like I'm in this field now. And if that ever ends, then I'd like to continue working in that sort of field, and contributing and feeling like you're making a difference, whatever small way that I think Youth Action might have made a difference. I've found it super rewarding in that sense. You know, even if it's just an individual young person that moved from a place of isolation and anxiety to an apprenticeship. You know, in some cases I've had that, and that's been very rewarding to see as well. And knowing that we carry within us, I think, enough life experience to move it on a little bit and make suggestions and point people away from damaging ways of thinking or behaviour. And, you know, I think like in this project, because it's not very intense, we've just slightly nudged young people into better ways of thinking and behaving and living. Whereas I think the work that we're both going into next, I think will have a lot more power to it. I think we'll have a lot more influence on young people. That's a heck of an arena to work in as well, the one that you're going into for sure. I'm just, I'm
very challenging.
Yeah.
But I've worked with people with CSE needs before, so
Okay.
I'm not that,
Mm-hmm.
say for example, nervous going into it because I know what to expect. So that's not an issue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, children presenting risky behaviours and I've been there.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. I'm not
Yeah.
going to go into that.
No. You have an opportunity to make interventions.
Yeah.
Now, and I like the idea of being in my path as well. That I'm going to be working with young people and just making little interventions that do good.
Yeah.
And what better way is there to make a living doing that as well? So, yeah, I mean, bringing it to a bit of a close, I think one of the messages that I would leave with young people that are listening is do things that you enjoy.
Definitely. If you think that it's not the right path, then change it. Don't stick to something you're not happy with. Definitely agree with that. Because I was always, growing up, I was all, I must complete this, I must finish that. If you know in your heart that something's definitely not the right path for you, then change it.
And you'll find yourself on the path you're supposed to be at. I kind of jokingly said in a presentation, I never set out to be a youth volunteering worker. If I look at my career path, it seems a bit random, but they are connected. But it's almost like I needed to go through a certain path to get to this point. I couldn't have possibly got to this point without the prison work that I did or the addiction work that I did, and I wouldn't have got there if I hadn't have trained as a counsellor. And I can kind of trace it back to almost like a single decision, if I'm honest.
See, when I left school, I started sixth form, but I knew it wasn't right for me. Obviously, to get my A levels, and then I went to college, and I just totally loved it. And then I ended up going university via college instead of sixth form, which worked out really great for me. So if you feel like in your heart that it's not the right path, then change it.
Do you ever feel like you trust the process a bit more these days because of that?
Yes, definitely.
Because I remember you coming to me when we knew that Youth Action would be finishing, and naturally you were terrified. You're a young mum.
Yeah.
You were about ready to, get settled in with Youth Action, and then it comes to an end. And I can understand a sense of panic. How do I provide for my son? That kind of thing. But it sort of all worked out.
Yeah, it did. There was a few other job vacancies that popped up, and I knew they weren't for me, and I just was trying out for them just because I'm not going to have no job, I'm not going to have no income. And then when the one came up that I definitely wanted, literally I put my heart and all into it, and then I got the job, which I'm so happy with. So yeah, you know when something's right for yourself.
It's also a good message to sort of not half-ass the things that you really think you're suited to, or the things you really want. I relate to that when it came to getting this job. I proper did it. I did a great application, I did a wicked presentation. I was very confident in that presentation. I think I killed the interview. I can't imagine doing any better than that, and I don't think that's necessarily why I got the job. I think experience and other things as well, but I certainly think it helped. I think from the personality point of view, because you said that it's a very supportive environment, and I think that's a credit to the people that they employ here as well. I don't think they're influxed with many people whenever there's a new role, but I think they're selective.
Yes, they've generally opted for caring people.
Yeah, it's certainly something to consider in the future when we start employing staff. But yeah, picking the right people is super important. So to wrap up, I feel like I need to leave with some final words, but I'll start with you first. Or do you want me to start?
You start, please.
I don't know who's listening at this point, but if there are ever any organisations that are listening, I would want to say thank you to them. I want to say thank you for the support and there was something about the trust. There was something in that, the trust of is a bloke who's turned up out of the blue and says, I'm working with young people, can we use some of your volunteering placements? The trust that young people have given us as well, to essentially say, can you help me? And I kind of feel thankful for that. I'm not going to answer that right now. Hang on. Hello? No, sorry, I'm in the room. I should let you know. In the middle of the podcast, sorry. All right. A classic fact, this is not the first time it's happened. We've had all sorts of things over this podcast. We've had bells going off, anything. Just thankful, really. Thankful for Kids Trust, organisation trust. Thankful for the organisation supporting myself in doing the job. Thankful for the organisation employing me. Thankful to Central Bedfordshire Council for putting this project out there, giving me lots. I mean, like a new career direction, loads of new experience, an opportunity to develop a project how I want. I mean, there's a lot to be thankful for me. And I finish up the sort of project with a sense of pride, a little bit of sadness. There's a sadness in it ending, but also like the gratitude is sort of overwhelming that somewhat, because I know I'm going to carry all this stuff forward, and I'm happy about that, and I know I'm going to have a word with the council about what they want to do going forward. That's a great opportunity. So yeah, just I think it's been a great 3 years. I've really enjoyed it. And,
Definitely, like start off, like obviously being thankful to the organisations who've been supportive of Youth Action and helping young people find suitable placements to their needs, which has been great. Definitely thankful for CBS employing me, and this has definitely been a huge impact on my career life, like learning new things, meeting new people, creating those contacts for future purposes, which will definitely will help me in my next position, in my next role. So yeah, it's been a great experience. I've really enjoyed it.
I felt like it was the right job for you at the time. Like all the sort of difficulties and the challenges that you've had, I don't imagine that any other working role might have been quite so supportive. I imagine
Probably not. Yeah.
And this is another indication of like right place, right time. Trust the process. Things are going to be okay. The things I never used to believe as a kid, and it seems to be working out just fine.
Yeah.
Done? Okay. Just to finish, really, signing off. This will be the last podcast, and I wish everybody out there the best. Keep getting outside your comfort zone, keep challenging yourself, keep accessing support, keep asking for help. Don't stay in a place of uncertainty, just all that stuff that I think I used to suffer with as a young kid anyway, that I've now learned to deal with much better. Maybe we'll see the young people that we've worked with in a future incarnation as well, so that'd be nice too.
We might meet past again, Adam.
Yeah, I'm sure. I hope so. All right. Goodbye, everyone.